Hey y'all, this is Tamika, the face behind Heyyy HR, and today we're going to talk about a topic that is really uncomfortable, really hard to feel, like really difficult to go through, and we're going to talk about layoffs. So this is the first video in a series of videos where we will talk about different parts of layoffs. For this video, we're going to talk about the trends. What are some trends that really happens whenever there are layoffs? When we hear the word buzzing, what are some of the things that we should notice is taking place at that time? And so, guys, y'all just get ready. I'm not even going to hit into any more background information. We're going to dive straight into it. So if you want to know some of the layoff trends, then definitely keep watching. So the first thing is that layoffs typically happen by industry. So right now we're hearing a lot about layoffs because it's happening in the tech industry. I remember when there was the automotive layoffs. I remember when there was a lot of government contracting layoffs, and that's one that kind of happens repetitiously. And so they really happen by industry. Sometimes you'll hear layoffs going on with different parts of the medical field, but not the entire medical field. Sometimes it could be in different parts of manufacturing, but not the entire manufacturing. Right now, it's really heavy in the tech industry. Tech has been in demand for quite some time. We have all been getting like better and better phones, better and better accesses online, more and more apps, more and more ways to handle things in a non-personable way where it's just electronics or it's just AI information or it's just online. And that tells you that tech has just literally been in demand, and because of that, costs have escalated. If y'all know supply and demand, the more and more demand there is, people gonna just keep on creating that supply, and they're gonna keep increasing that price. So if you know anything at all about economics, then you know supply and demand really causes a fluctuation in prices or a decrease in prices. And so the costs have been high for different forms of technology. Others are realizing that it's not as a necessary cost. So there is tons of technology that we do for luxurious reasons, but they're not required. It's not like our body needs water. Well, we don't need technology, right? It makes life easier for us. It's a convenient. And so because they realize that it's not a necessity, people are either deciding not to renew the contracts, or they're renewing them at a much lower rate with different technological firms that provide that technology for them. And so because they're either not renewing or renewing at a much lower rate or cutting down what they currently have, it's really hit the tech industry really hard. We've heard all of this buzz about the recession, and a lot of times economics plays into that. People may say, well, I'm really preparing for this recession, or I'm really getting hit in costs in other areas of things that we need, so we're going to cut back on this technology, constant revenue, or I can't say constant revenue, this technology expense. Now we're going to cut back on this technology expense because this is a luxury. We need these things and they're more expensive. And so prior to tech layoffs, they were also like plant layoffs. And I already told you guys like a list of them, automobile layoffs. Even before we heard about tech layoffs, we were hearing about Tesla and those at their different plants. The other employees online weren't getting hit, or the people who were making all the gadgets, they go in these cars, but the people who were putting it all together in these manufacturing firms. And then long ago, there were industries, like I told you already about the automobile. So some industries experience them on a regular basis, and that's your government contracting. So I'm going to give you guys a bit of an example with that. Prior to starting my career in human resources, and I'll say this is why I was in grad school and I had just started like my HR courses, I was doing government contracting. The work that we did worked on projects. So instead of just doing a regular timesheet, we had to allocate everything that we did each day, do an itemized time report saying I spent X hours on this, I spent X hours on that. Very detailed. There were times that our contract would end. Maybe we worked on a project that now that project is done. Even if you weren't a contracted employee, if you're working on that project, we no longer have work for you. And so that happens on a regular basis, depending on what contracts they're able to negotiate that can be either short-term or long-term. So people don't talk about those as often because they're common. And most times those positions are filled by military people who have a separate income. And so it's not really a big deal to talk about those, right? People kind of hear layoffs and they keep going. It's not until we talk about these non-traditional layoffs that people really start feeling it home. And the fact that not everyone goes into government contracting, but like I feel like working for tech companies like Microsoft and Google and Twitter and all of those big names, Facebook, All of those have been like dream jobs for so many people. And it's an industry where jobs are so brand new, haven't been created, like aren't existed in 20 years. And the demand for those positions haven't existed. And it really is hurting people's heart because you feel like you're finally at the top of your career and you get hit down. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about is that most companies, and this is not just what we're going to talk about, this is going to be our second trend. So our second trend is that most companies affected by layoffs are in hiring freezes. Y'all won't notice hiring freezes because you're not applying. If you're currently at that company, right? Are you applying to another job? Are you even doing it the traditional way like an external applicant is? So you don't realize the company is already in a hiring freeze. So that's a trend and that's a sign that we're probably about to do layoffs when we slow down how many people we're bringing on the team. One thing that you can notice is that, man, this team used to have 80 people and now only has 60. Are they not rehiring those 20 people? And then you look online and maybe that job's not there and you only see one job. Or you refer somebody and you notice that they're taking the time to interview that person. Or you just notice like a delay in the hiring process. Then most times you're bending towards a hiring freeze, and that's a trend that goes with layoffs because the whole point in layoffs is to save money, or to stop spending money, or to meet a new threshold. Maybe we had a really high aggressive goal and we decided we're not going to go that heavy on it anymore because we're not bringing in the revenue like we expected, or that things are costing us more money. As a result, where can we cut expenses? It's so heartless in my opinion, or sounds so heartless, I'll say. And math makes sense, right? So all I need to do is pay attention. But for the person, the lay person that doesn't pay attention to these things, the individual contributor, it sounds really heartless. But the plan is, okay, where can we save money? We'll save money on employees. We're not going to pay out salaries anymore. We won't pay out benefits anymore. We won't be worried about time off. I don't think people understand until layoffs how much the employees absorb a lot of the company's costs. We don't think about them benefits and stuff till we get laid off. Then we're like, hold up, I worth that much? Yeah, you are. Not just your salary you take home, but also what the company's paying on your behalf. All right, so
I really kind of went through a little tangent with that one, didn't I?
So we just want to keep in mind that most times hiring cuts were happening before layoffs. We just didn't pay attention to them. We didn't realize they were happening. But employees didn't notice because they were already employed and they just weren't asking. Just keep that in mind. I know one thing that people may not pay attention to is if your team does announcements when new hires coming on, and maybe you find yourself like every week we got 5 new hires. Now you notice like every month we got 3 new hires. Either you fill in your demand of how much you need to run your department, or you're easing back on hiring. So that's another example. Now, a new trend that I've noticed with layoffs, particularly in the tech industry, and I really like this. I think this is a good sign that a company means well, in my opinion, because so many times before in all of these previous layoffs, this trend didn't exist. So the next trend that I noticed is that companies are now being very generous financially to employees when they're laying them off. I know when I got laid off, because I got laid off twice. So when I got laid off the first time from government contracting, I was given, we were government contracting, so we had to abide by the WARN Act, or they had to abide by the WARN Act, where they have to tell you 90 days before that we don't have work for you. So it was a luxury to know 90 days before that I might not have work. According to the WARN Act, they're supposed to also help you try to find work within the organization. So it was nice that they kind of set you up for some opportunities, train you on some things, to teach you some new things outside of your work to get you prepared. And then the last thing was when I left, I literally only got like my last paycheck and the PTO I had saved. Now, a new thing that companies are doing is that they're saying, okay, we're going to pay you for this period of time. Or we're going to let today be your last day and you'll still get paid out to this time. Like, you're not reporting to work, you're not expected to be at work, but we're going to pay you out to this time. There are tons of companies that are saying today is your last day. But then they're giving you COBRA benefits. So they're paying for your health care for a period of time, which is a very expensive cost. So maybe they decide, okay, we're going to pay for your COBRA benefits for the next 60 days, the next 6 months. Some people have even gotten different types of extended pay. So you're no longer an employee, but we're going to give you a payout that lasts for this period of time. So it works very, very much like a severance, but you're not literally required to sign a severance agreement. We just agreed we're going to give you some money while you're trying to find work. Another thing is that these severance agreements, not only just generous and like, hey, I'm going to offer you a little bit more than what you should get, or what the law says I have to give you. But I've noticed that some companies, like bigger tech companies, common household name companies, have decided, like, on your severance, not only am I going to give you the period of time that you want and go a little bit over that, but I'm going to add on another pay with that. So you'll get like 2 lump sums of payments. So I've heard all types of things, and it's been so interesting to absorb that information from everywhere. But so much of my resources come from the national news. I don't rely on things like Fox or the internet news. I really look at CBS is kind of my go-to. CNN is a go-to. Different news like that I feel come from lucrative resources. Another thing is I'm on so many different email lists for so many different employment law attorneys and so many different HR resources that I get information there. Another thing is that I look at reputable resources on Google. I'm not looking at Wikipedia. I'm going to go to those things like New York Times, like CNN, those like that. So companies are now being super generous, and those are a lot of trends that I know. Another thing is that people have been confiding in me, which I think is so nice, and telling me like, no, they gave me this, they decided to do that, my coworker got this, you know. So that's nice information to know too. But I've noticed that they've been a lot more generous than it has been in past industry-wide layoffs. And so a lot of companies are delaying your last day of work as well. So they might say, hey, we're laying you off, but you can work out until this time too. So I just feel like that's a lot more generous than I've ever experienced. And I told you already about my first layoff and my second layoff. I was literally told the day of, like, the day is your last day. And I got paid till that day. And I got my paycheck that day. And that was it. No warning. And I was working for Verizon on a Apple launch. And the Apple launch didn't go as well as they expected. They had told me, predicted that I'd be working on this contract for this period of time. That contract got short by so many different months, like so many months. And so I just feel like now seeing these layoffs, I feel like they're a lot more generous. So I know that sounds like the HR response, but I hope knowing that I've gotten laid off twice helps you understand that I truly understand where you're coming from. And I'm a single mom. I've always been a single mom. Like me and her dad, my daughter's dad, our relationship ended when my daughter was like 2 years old. So I've always been dependent on me. I don't have like a cush family to get money from. So I really, really understand what you're saying. And I want you to know that things could be so much more worse. Don't focus on what this company did to you, because you're going to have some feelings. Focus on how can I get my career going again, and what things can I focus on. So if you want to know some tips on like how do I get this research, this job search going a little bit better and keep going to the next level, then you definitely want to subscribe to Heyyy HR, because this is only the first video of a series of videos about layoffs that can truly help the HR and non-HR employee. And so if you guys want to know any more, subscribe. For those of you who are new, I appreciate you being here. I hope I gave you what you're looking for. And for those of you who are returning, man, I really appreciate you as usual. I cannot wait to see y'all on the next video.